let's talk dead cells and getting good at dead cells. No, you know what? Let's just talk getting started. You know, I watch a lot of new players to Dead Cells, and having been a new player once myself, I remember the feeling of being just lost in a game that feels, well, brutally difficult, to be honest. I also remember then seeing people really good at the game and wondering how I could possibly be so terrible at Dead Cells and others be so good at it, frankly. Now, while Dead Cells is very self-explanatory and very easy to pick up, the specifics of how to start winning runs with Dead Cells takes a balance of both know-how and practice. Now, you can get a lot of the know-how through trial and error, or as I'm sure you're wanting to do because, frankly, you're watching this, you can ask someone for advice. So today we're going to go through how to not suck at Dead Cells. Now, full disclaimer, I'm not the best person at Dead Cells. No, I've not unlocked all of the boss cells, but I have reached a point where I can be helpful on what you need to do in order to get better at the basic game. I mean, after all, no reason I can't impart some of my experience to others who are struggling with where I once was. Okay, tip number 1, pick a build type and stick to it. By this, I'm referring to the scrolls you actually pick up, and you'll be able to pick between brutality, tactics, or survival, or red, purple, and green if you've only really ever noticed the colors. Now, obviously, the weapons that you pick up and traps that you have and all the powers could change and probably actually should change throughout your run, so not that. I'm referring to when you actually start picking up scrolls, you should be putting all of your scrolls in one of the 3 colors and not changing that as much as possible during the course of your run. It is very, very tempting when you see the percentages of health increase and all the stats information when you're looking at picking out where to put a scroll to go, you know what, I should maybe balance this out across the different weapons that I have. Don't do this. This will not help you to actually beat the game. Now, obviously, there are dual scrolls where you're going to have to throw something into something else, but whenever possible, you should always put your scrolls into one of the 3 in a single run. And don't switch after you started to do it as well. Once you get past Prisoner's Quarters, don't switch and now start going, oh, I was doing brutality and now I'm going tactics. No. Stick to one, and that will help you get a lot further because of how much the scrolls impact the weapon's DPS and power and abilities. On to tip number 2, shields. Shields are a great asset to the game. You should start learning how to use them as soon as possible. You've got those starting weapons at the beginning of the game. You're going to have a shield to pick up the shield, start learning how to use it. The game actually gives you a way to figure out how to do the parrying that you need to not take damage when using a shield. Yes, you can hold up your shield and just reduce the damage, but that's not using it correctly. You want to prevent damage. When an enemy is about to attack, there's a yellow exclamation point that shows up over their head. When you see this, hit your shield button and you will perform a parry. Now, some of the timing is a little bit off with ranged attacks, but for most attacks, especially like I said, those melee attacks, look for the exclamation point and you'll be able to get the parry timing down pretty easily. Based upon your shield, there are benefits like maybe getting money, or maybe it gives you a shield when you parry, or maybe it actually does a lot of damage back. There are also shields that do DOT effects like giving bleed to every other enemy that's in the vicinity when you do a parry. Shields become very, very important to progressing in the game because it opens up a significant amount of your arsenal of weapons that are going to be dropped for you. So learn how to use your shields. Now, this isn't to say that non-shield runs can't be good. You definitely need to learn how to use them because there are some enemies that are significantly easier with shields. Specifically, Timekeeper. Tip number 3. Traps, skills, and powers, aka things that go into each of your left and right trigger unless you've remapped slots. You're basically your other 2 weapons. Possibly for me the most frustrating part of watching a new player to Dead Cells is seeing them have grenades and traps and powers, and they don't get used for almost an entire run. They'll try and spam them when they're in boss fights, sure, but they're not using them to clear through a biome. Now yes, when you use a grenade, there's a cooldown anywhere from like 4 to 15 or 16 seconds, something like that. but if you never use them, they're sitting there unused on basically an entire cooldown. These traps and these grenades definitely help you to clear swarms of enemies that come up to you. Think of them as a panic button. Now, of course, make sure that you're picking up traps and skills and powers that are actually scaled with the build type that you've selected. Now, there are some exceptions. Notably, you can pick up wolf traps and they will work with any skill type because, frankly, keeping an enemy trapped just works even if it's not scaling correctly. But for the most part, you definitely want to go with the build type that you have. Think of the traps as a way of dealing with enemies who don't quite see you yet that you might be able to take out without having to engage them head to head. Next tip. Let's think about the affixes on our weapons. Now, this is probably the most ignored part of the game for any new player. But your weapon arsenal has affixes attached to it that give it modifiers based upon other weapons or based upon other conditions that may be happening, such as giving you a percentage increase of damage based on freeze or bleed or poison, or causing enemies to bleed when struck, or causing a toxic cloud when they die. These are really important because you have 4 different weapons, a primary, a offhand, and 2 skills or traps or powers that all can synergize together and make your build really powerful as a full unit as opposed to individual weapons. If you freeze enemies, they become immobilized. There are weapons that can deal with that. These are the things you want to look for. Spend a little bit of time as you're getting later on in your run re-rolling for affixes. Now, I wouldn't do too much of this early, as you'll probably be finding a better weapon anyways, but as you get closer to the final Hand of the King fight, look for ways that you can actually make the build be synergistic with each other so that you can have additional damage beyond just the base DPS for each weapon. Next tip. Tip number 5. Ignore the timed doors. Built into Dead Cells is this capability to speedrun, and that's actually great. I really enjoy speedrunning Dead Cells. I'm not great at it, but it's something that you can do. For new players, those timed doors, however, especially the one right out of Prisoner's Quarters that says, if you got here in 2 minutes, you could get in here and you could get a great weapon, is kind of intimidating. Trying to go for the timed doors will make you make mistakes early on, specifically will make you miss scrolls within like Prisoner's Quarters, or make you miss important weapons or chests that could make your run more robust later on. You want to think about getting all the way through to the end. Instead of going for a time door, go for the kill doors that are in nearly every level. Prisoner's Quarters, you have to get 30 kills in a row without getting hit, and every other level it's getting 60 kills in a row without getting hit. Now, I know this seems like an insurmountable feat to try and accomplish, to not get hit at all for 30 kills in a row, but the more that you focus on it and take your time specifically, you'll actually be able to get those opened, you'll be able to get those kills, and you'll be able to get really good bonus cells and weapon upgrades in those kill doors. Again, the main reason is if you try to push for the time door, you're almost guaranteed going to miss scrolls, and you really need those scrolls to scale your build to get the damage you need to defeat the Hand of the King. Okay, final tip. This one seems a little bit weird, but just stick with me. Use your money wisely. Most new Dead Cells players seem to have the money they collect burning holes in their pockets. As soon as they get to the minor forge between each level, they spend all of their money upgrading or re-rolling every single weapon until they're completely broke again. Now, while again looking for synergies and upgrading weapons is important, you need to think about when and how you're spending your money. The weapons that you have early on are going to be level 1 weapons, or even the starter weapons that you're going to want to switch off of at some point. Upgrading these weapons doesn't make sense. Even re-rolling them often doesn't make much sense either. You're going to need to spend money on purchasing new weapons or on upgrading weapons that you find in chests or other places throughout the different levels. Instead, you just want to save it until at least you're past the first boss, or maybe even the second boss, till you start really upgrading your weapons. You'll have a lot more ability to be flexible as you run through shops. You'll be able to roll for affixes and synergies to get the specific build that you want. This is really what's going to help you defeat the Hand of the King and actually get to start enjoying those boss cells. Alright, so that's it. Those are my 6 tips on how to not suck at Dead Cells. A quick recap, pick a build and stick to it. Use your shields and learn how to use them. Make sure you're using your traps, powers, and skills. Focus on the affixes with your weapons. Ignore those timed doors. Go for the kill doors instead. And spend your money wisely. If you do these 6 things, I know you're going to see significantly more success and get further in your runs. Now we're going to have 3 more episodes in the How to Not Suck at Dead Cells series. We're going to focus specifically on each of the builds, on brutality, tactics, and survival, and what you can do and what you want to look for when you're going for those specific types of runs. There's a lot of things out there that are sort of like top builds that you can have. I'm not talking top builds. I'm talking what types of things should you be looking for when you're going for a brutality build? What should you do? What should you stay away from? So I definitely recommend, though, you can feel free to check out. There's lots of good content out there on some of the best builds, so feel free to look at those. We'll be coming back again with more of a generalistic looks at things. I would also recommend checking out things on specifically how to beat like Hand of the King, how to be the Timekeeper, or even the Concierge. There's a lot of really good content out there already, so I didn't want to duplicate that here. Instead, I wanted to focus on specifically ways that you can have a more balanced run and get a little bit more consistency to actually getting to and beating the Hand of the King. Well, I really hope you enjoyed watching this episode. If you did, please remember to drop me a like and subscribe as well if you're not subscribed yet. And until next time, stay safe and happy gaming.